Is tweeting this morning, Russia vows to shoot down any and all missiles fired at Syria. Get ready, Russia, because they will be coming.
When you heard the news that the FBI had raided Michael Cohen, what did you think?
I thought this was an extremely rare and extremely aggressive.
Facebook has recently blocked Trump supporters Diamond and Silk's page.
If Mark Zuckerberg can't make this an even playing field, Facebook book is going to be the face without the book and the book with no pages when we're done with this hearing.
The DOJ is under fire, accused by furious GOP lawmakers of stalling those documents.
Clearly, we need to do a better job. It was made very clear to me by the Attorney General that we're to produce documents quickly.
She is back. After March Madness, Loyola's sister Jean decided to invade the Chicago Cubs home opener.
All right, we're right to a Fox News alert. Get ready, Russia. That's the warning from the President of the United States. He has a warning of a missile strike in Syria after that chemical attack Saturday. Those images are obviously from last year. Kevin Corke, however, is live at the White House with the breaking news. So, Kevin, do we know how soon this could happen?
The smart move is not to make sure, or rather to make sure that people don't know when exactly this will happen, guys. But that said, the president is telegraphing just a bit on Twitter. Let me take you there, because once again, he is really pointing the finger, not just at the Assad regime, but he's also pointing it at Russia, saying this on Twitter, that Russia, which, by the way, you may have read this already, they've been vowing to shoot down any and all missiles fired at Syria. Well, the president said this: get ready, Russia, because they will be coming nice and new and smart. You shouldn't be partners with a gas-killing animal who kills his people and enjoys it. By the way, he added this not long after: our relationship with Russia is worse now than it has ever been, and that includes the Cold War. There's no reason for this. Russia needs us to help with their economy, something that would be very easy to do. All we need is all nations to work together, stop the arms race, ? Now, the airstrikes, as you just showed there, last April, the U.S. responding very forcefully to the assault on the Syrian people by the Bashar al-Assad regime. More than 50 Tomahawk missiles really surprised even their biggest proponents in Moscow. Yesterday, you saw the UN Security Council meeting on Syria. The U.S. ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, imploring the world to speak with one voice against the murderous Assad regime. Now, there is a list I can share with you of U.S. assets that are moving into the region. This is when you know it's about to go down. The good news is, for most Americans, is we really are hoping to be on the right side of history vis-a-vis the Syrian people. The bad news is this could mean that we are thrust into another hot conflict in the region. Of course, guys, I'll be here all day. Any details that we get, we'll pass them along. But for now, back to you.
All right. The president doesn't want to say exactly when, but he did tweet the missiles will be coming. Let's bring in Fox News contributor and former Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz. He joins us today. Jason, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It seems like the right reaction from the president and the Pentagon, doesn't it?
It does. Overwhelming force, and I have no doubt that the Defense Secretary Mattis knows how to do this, and it'll be done right under the direction of President Trump. They've made a mistake. They've gone too far. This is not going to be some fictitious red line that Obama dealt with. President Trump will take care and protect the United States and the United States forces.
And we got to just worry about what happens the day after. So let's say it's 4 days of strikes.
Yeah.
We don't have people on the ground that we agree with. We like the Kurds. They're back to where they were in Syria and Iraq. Yeah. So what is our ultimate goal? I think that at some point the president's got to tell us that.
And they need to dismantle the capability for Syria to carry out these acts. I think most military analysts that I've heard and seen, they want to take out the capability to launch and do more military strikes via their Air Force.
All right.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the investigations that are going on. We saw Hillary Clinton get investigated and never indicted. Now the president's attorney is getting raided, and many on the right are saying this is a double standard. What are your thoughts?
It's a total double standard. I mean, the raid itself, I can't believe. But remember, it was the Inspector General for the intelligence community who made a referral with potential criminality to it, that there was classified information being stored in a non-classified setting. That happened to be Hillary Clinton's attorney's office. They didn't have the requisite security clearances, and it wasn't in a secure setting. What did the FBI do? Did they raid it? Did they go do a no-doc, hit on that attorney's office? No, those people, Cheryl Mills, Heather Samuelson, they ended up getting immunity agreements. They basically called up, knocked on the door and said, would you please give us this? And over a course of time, then they made the transition. A totally different set of standards and sensitive information that is so classified, even as the chairman of the Oversight Committee, I couldn't see it because it dealt with people's lives and people could have been killed if that information was out in the open.
So,
go ahead, Brian.
So when you're looking, we were just showing shots of Michael Cohen. Not only has Robert Mueller taken a wide swath in this investigation, indicting people for lying, not telling the truth, from a Dutch lawyer to Michael Flynn to Paul Manafort, and now 2 people aiding with Paul Manafort. Then they go in with a no-knock raid into Michael Cohen's office, and then 4 separate offices. On top of that, we're finding out he decides to pick up the phone and talk to Don Lemon at CNN. How bizarre are these series of circumstances? And what do you think the message is, if you're the president, when your lawyer goes on the biggest critic of your administration?
I don't know. President Trump is dealing with a lot of stuff, but that is absolutely off the rails. Remember, the Southern District of New York, who got this referral, it was President Trump that came in and actually dismissed that person. Remember the whole brouhaha? I think his name was Mr. Parid or something like that. But yeah, Bahar, exactly. And there was this whole big uproar about that. So that's the district in which you give this. All we want is justice to be equal under the law, and it is not. That is what's driving us crazy. That's why you got to go in and clean up the Department of Justice.
You know what, Jason, just about 40 minutes ago, we had John Lausch, a U.S. attorney from Illinois, who's been tapped by the Attorney General to go into the Department of Justice and try to get this document production thing going fast, because so few have been released. I think just a handful, maybe 6,000 so far out of 1 million that the IG has. We had him on a little while ago. Listen to how he describes his job, where he says we have got to do a better job in getting the word out. Listen.
Clearly, we need to do a better job at the department and the FBI at getting materials to the House committee to do their job. It was made very clear to me by the Attorney General in giving me this task that we're to produce documents quickly. We're to do so completely under the law. My job is to deal with the documents that have been responsive to the Goodlatte subpoena. To be clear, the DOJ is not refusing to hand over anything. And of course, Congress has, they have a right and an obligation to do their job, which includes oversight. I mean, what our job and what my job will be is to ensure that we have a process, a better process than we've had going forward. We need to do better. We need to do much better.
Absolutely. Mark Meadows feels that as well. He's the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, a Republican from North Carolina. He just tweeted this out. While I appreciate Mr. Lausch's efforts, the Inspector General for the DOJ has all of the relevant documents. Why not turn over those documents to Congress? Let us do our job. The DOJ has been of little to no help to Congress in this investigation. And I would imagine, Jason, you feel the same way.
I do. I'm convinced as long as Attorney General Sessions is there, this problem will continue. I look at Sessions, Attorney General Lynch, Attorney General Holder, and I can't tell the difference because these documents have been under subpoena since 2016. Right. And for him to come on, John Lausch, and say that the Department of Justice is not refusing to turn over everything, they have refused to do it. They are out of compliance with a duly issued subpoena. John Lausch ought to dust off that resume and send it over to ZipRecruiter.com because he's going to need to get a new job. Anybody who is refusing to turn over those documents, they should be held in contempt. And the Congress needs to stand up for itself. They need to yank up Director Wray. They need to get Attorney General Sessions there. They need to get Stephen Boyd, a name you haven't heard. He worked for Mr. Sessions when he was in the Senate. He's the Director of Legislative Affairs. Have him raise the right hand. Hold him in contempt. Stand up for yourself, Congress. I couldn't get it done. I was the chairman of the Oversight Committee. I issued the subpoena. subpoena. But if Paul Ryan, Kevin McCarthy, Steve Scalise, if they're going to call themselves leadership, then lead on this issue and get these documents. Mr. Lausch went on your program and said, well, we won't turn over anything that's related to a grand jury. There was no grand jury. He doesn't even know this case. Get those documents. They're under subpoena and comply with it. And Bob Goodlatte, do your job. Yank them up, hold them in contempt.
Why can't we just get those 2 pages, the FISA application? What's so hard about that? It's only 2 pages. Why won't they hand that over?
The one that does have a backbone in Congress is Devin Nunes. And Devin Nunes has said, hey, Director Wray, it's a separate case. If it's Russia, it goes to the Intel Committee. If it has nothing to do with Russia, then you're looking at Trey Gowdy and Bob Goodlatte with John Ratcliffe there leading it for the Judiciary Committee. 2 pages. Twice Trey Gowdy has gone over to the Department of Justice. Twice they've been redacted. All Trey Gowdy wants to look at, he has the necessary security clearance, is to go look at what they have redacted.
Nunes
but they won't do it.
Nunes keeps saying he's going to impeach after today's deadline. If they don't give the documents, he wants to impeach Christopher Wray. Is that really? Can that really happen? Because America's frustrated. They're like, we've been asking for these documents. He's been asking for these documents for more than a year now. Nothing's happening. And is he really going to be impeached?
He should. Now, will they have the backbone and the guts to do it? That's a whole other question. Remember when the IRS director would not turn over the documents? Yep. Remember when we were having problems with him? Remember when he came to Congress and lied to us? We tried to impeach him. Under the Constitution, you can impeach somebody who is a civil officer. And I'm glad to have Devin Nunes not only talking about it, but willing to take some action.
By the way, ZipRecruiter will find you a job in 1 day. They're one of our sponsors on the radio. So keep in mind, if it doesn't work out for John Roush, he does have a legitimate option.
All right. Jason Chaffetz, thank you very much for joining us today from Utah. All right.
Thank you.
Very busy. Busy. 8:11 now here in New York City. Jillian?
That's right. Good morning to you guys. We are busy. We are starting with a Fox News alert right now. More than 250 people have been killed in a devastating military plane crash in Algeria. The jet carrying troops and their families going down shortly after takeoff near an air base in the African nation. No word yet on what caused that crash. Another California city joins a lawsuit against the state's sanctuary law. The city of Orange voting overnight to oppose the bill, which limits local law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration authorities. Orange joined 7 other Orange County cities that oppose the bill. This as the Trump administration heads to court today to overturn a blocked order from the president to cut funding from sanctuary cities. Sister Jean is switching teams. How about this? The most loved nun in sports throwing out the first pitch at the Cubs home opener. The 98-year-old stole hearts across America during the NCAA tournament as her school, Loyola Chicago, made a run to the Final Four. So I guess she's not really switching teams. She's just, cheering on Chicago.
She's got a basketball team. She's got a baseball team.
Season's done. The kids are all in study hall now. Might as well go watch a baseball game.
Why not?
All right, Jillian, thank you. Well, in just a couple of hours, Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook guy, is going to be back on Capitol Hill for a second day in the hot seat. House Majority Whip Steve Scalise will be there. He's going to tell us what he wants to hear from the billionaire coming up.
Plus, Griff Jenkins gives us an exclusive look at protecting our border from the water.
Sir, were you trying to cross to America?
All right, the Laredo sector of the southern border stretches 171 miles of the Rio Grande River with zero border wall as the National Guard arrives to help Border Patrol secure the area. Our own Griff Jenkins is getting an exclusive look at the mission on the river.
Morning, Griff.
Good morning, guys. The Guardsmen are going to find one of the toughest parts of this border to secure because of its all-water front. And we went on the boats yesterday to get a closer look at just the task that they're going to have in front of them. Take a look.
Every single week, we get reports from our partners in the government of Mexico, gun battles, people being killed, down to to the south of our border, that is at the hands of the cartel, the same cartel that traffics illegal immigrants and narcotics across our borders through this area.
The mission of the boats is to patrol the river, to make sure we have that that constant presence.
There's just tons of people. Some are standing on the banks, some wave, some are fishing. How do you know who intends to come across? How do you differentiate?
They might be there scouting, waiting for us to pass along the area, and then that's when they'll make the move as far as crossing either individuals or narcotics across the river.
Sir, were you trying to cross to America? Agent Contreras, we rolled up. What was happening there?
So you had two individuals that were attempting to illegally enter the U.S. by wading across the Rio Grande River. We actually had agents already up there waiting for them, so that's what kind of turned them back.
In your sort of estimation here, is this the boats, the land, and the sky? Is that what stops people from entering?
Right, so it's a combination, right? You need personnel, you need the technology, and then you need the infrastructure that's going to give us access to the immediate border.
The Border Patrol is a mobile force. It is a 24/7 job keeping those vehicles at a high state of readiness so that our men and women can go out there and do that job. That's one of the elements of support that the National Guard can bring to bear.
Now, last night, there were 152 apprehensions, and they seized 88 pounds of marijuana. Around 2:30 this morning, my cameraman and I listened to about a 30-second gun battle. Chief Owens, you saw in that package, told me that cartel over there, the Zeta cartel, has never been more desperate or more violent. So it is a real serious situation, but thank goodness they're getting more manpower as the guardsmen begin to arrive.
And
Guys?
Griff, the guardsmen are going to be the eyes in the sky. They won't actually be down on the ground apprehending anybody, right?
That's right. They will be supporting law enforcement, not doing the law enforcement, although under Title 32, they are authorized if the governor were to choose to do so. A key role they're going to play is horizontal engineering, which translates to clearing roads and clearing some of this riverbank, which is a big part of the task they have in the Laredo sector.
Hey, Griff, how many days did you pack for? How many more days? How many more shirts?
Plenty of shirts. It's you know, you recycle them. You go with the dark blue, the light blue.
Okay.
We can go all week if we have
Yeah,
to.
I saw that Saturday.
They've got a washing machine there and a Walmart.
All right, take note of the shirt you're wearing today. Don't wear it tomorrow, Griff. Thank you.
All right. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders slamming a reporter for asking this.
With all of this turmoil, particularly this last week, has the president at any time thought about stepping down?
No, and I think that's an absolutely ridiculous question.
But then he'll step down, then run for re-election. Will the media ever back off this kind of coverage? We'll debate it.
With all of this turmoil, particularly this last week, has the president at any time thought about stepping down before or now?
No, and I think that's an absolutely ridiculous question.
White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders making her message to the media pretty clear in that soundbite. Will the mainstream media ever back off this kind of coverage of our president? Here to debate this is RNC spokesperson Kayleigh McEnany and Fox News contributor Jessica Tarlov. I hate to laugh, but I just can't get enough of those two. Those two continue to spar. Kayleigh, what did you think? Did you think that question was ridiculous, like Sarah said?
Of course. You know, that was one of the most absurd, asinine questions ever asked from the White House briefing room. We already knew that the mainstream media was biased. The Harvard study found 80% negative coverage of Trump's first 100 days. The only network that achieved balance in that Harvard study was this network, Fox News. But that just revealed the evidence of political bias, that question. And you have a bunch of reporters in this briefing room. They're really liberal political commentators posing as reporters.
Jessica, what'd you think?
Well, I certainly didn't find it asinine. I think that there is an issue with journalists having their political leanings come out, but I thought it was a totally relevant question considering what's going on here with the raid of Michael Cohen's office. And there is the crime fraud exception before we get to, oh my God, this is a witch hunt and it was totally illegal and shouldn't have happened. You have Rod Rosenstein signing off on it. You have Trump appointee in the Southern District overseeing it. The narrative for President Trump is not going well, and it is normal to think about what could be coming next when there is a lot of talk about impeachment. I'm not a fan of that approach. No thank you to Mike Pence. But I think it's a completely relevant question. And Sarah Sanders had a really tough time in the briefing room.
Jessica, you really think that's okay for her to even think that the president would step down?
Why not? You think that President Trump has never thought, wow, this is not what I bargained for? He even said that early on. Oh, this is a lot tougher than I thought it would be. You're the president of the United States of America.
Kayleigh. Come
yeah,
on.
Yes, exactly. There are a million things you could ask Sarah Sanders about substantive issues affecting the American people. This is a question with no basis in truth, no basis in fact, that was just lobbed at the press secretary. It was ridiculous, and this all boils down to the fact that the media cannot stand that President Trump is succeeding. They cannot stand that President Obama couldn't achieve historically low unemployment. President Trump has. They can't stand that ISIS was flourishing under Obama, but under President Trump, they are on the run. They can't stand Obama didn't act in Syria, but President Trump has. They cannot stand that this president is succeeding, and that is at the root of this.
Jessica, Republicans do feel like they're doing everything they can to take this president down, resist hysterics. I mean, for her to ask that question, and this is the same girl. She and Sarah Huckabee Sanders, they keep going back and forth, and that's why I laughed at the beginning, because it's kind of humorous. She's the one that said Sarah Huckabee Sanders didn't really make her pecan pie, and then said she was just kidding. Yeah. But do you agree with that? Do you think that Republicans are accurate in saying that Democrats will do whatever they can to take down this president?
I don't think so. I think that there are a lot of people on both sides of the aisle are just following the trail of what's going on here. If you listen to Republicans that are all over television, they are saying, you cannot fire Bob Mueller. You cannot fire Rod Rosenstein. These are things that we know the president is mulling, that he wants them desperately out of there. Look at his Twitter account. Total witch hunt. It's not a total witch hunt. These are not men, professionals who have dedicated themselves in service of the United States of America who are doing this just because they don't like Donald Trump. They're Republicans on top of it all. So that narrative's completely smashed. I don't think it's that Democrats can't stand all of the accomplishments of this president. He's doing a great job building on Obama's accomplishments. I will give him that in a lot of ways. But I don't think it's about that. I think it's about what I heard a little giggle. What are you giggling about there?
It's just so predictable.
What?
Kayleigh, do you think it's backfiring on Democrats?
Oh, no doubt about it. You look at the latest CNN poll, President Trump gained 8% in his approval ratings. In the Rasmussen poll, he's breached 50%. It's backfiring. The American people, and I've heard it out on the road, they say to me, I didn't vote for this president, but I'm going to give him a chance because the media is breathlessly peddling in conspiracy theories like Russia collusion. That didn't exist. President Trump has been investigated, thousands of pages of documents, millions actually. No Russian collusion. It was a concocted story to take down this president and obstruct the will of the American people. That's what it all came down to.
I don't think that Bob... We don't have the Mueller report yet, so we don't know about Russia collusion. If you want to talk about conspiracy theories, we can take a trip down Roseanne Barr's Twitter account, for instance, or the number of people on the right who are supporters of President Trump who peddle things about, the Seth Rich conspiracy. You have Pizzagate. You've got the sex trafficking one that showed up there, coming off of 4chan or whatever. This is not a Democrat problem whatsoever.
Jessica, Kayleigh, thanks for joining us. Great to see you, ladies.
Thanks, Ainsley.
Okay, bye. Breaking news from Capitol Hill. A new report says House Speaker Paul Ryan will announce he is not running for re-election. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich is here to react next. Plus, Mark Zuckerberg just hours away from being back on the hot seat in Capitol Hill. House Majority Whip Steve Scalise will be there. What will he ask? That's coming up.
Would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
I think that may be what this is all about. Your right to privacy.
Fox News Alert, here we go. This time it could be for real. House Speaker Paul Ryan may be ready to leave Congress.
Axios is reporting this morning that he will not seek re-election in November.
He has reportedly told confidants about the decision and will make an announcement soon, we're being told.
That's right. Timing couldn't be worse. Let's bring in Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, been in that position before. Mr. Speaker, at a time in which too many Republicans, from their perspective, are leaving, is this a devastating time for the party for him to go?
I don't know. It's devastating. I think Paul Ryan's a very talented person. He never wanted to be Speaker. He's really oriented towards policy more than the challenges of running a legislative body. And I think he may well, again, this is a leak. We don't know if it's true or not, but he clearly has been thinking about leaving. And I think he and his family might be much happier if he leaves. And he's got a great future. He's very young. He could easily end up running for governor and someday running for president. So he's got a lot ahead of him. On the other hand, you're going to have some people like Kevin McCarthy, Steve Scalise, who now have a big incentive to go out and help elect candidates. So I know when I left, it took about 6 days. and they replaced me. When Denny Hastert left, who had replaced me, it took about a week, and they got John Boehner. When Boehner left, it took like 3 days, and they got Paul Ryan. The systems move on.
Sure.
The Democrats don't. They keep Nancy Pelosi. They bring her out of regularly. But for the Republicans, we've got lots of talent. I think either Scalise or McCarthy would be a very good speaker. Obviously, Paul is a unique person. He's a great policy person, but he's gotten deregulation. He has now gotten welfare reform with the president's statements this week. He helped pass the big tax cut he always wanted to help pass. I think from his perspective, he's gotten a lot of things done he believes in. And if he wants to stay, I think he'd be a great speaker for next time. If he wants to go home, I think we'll find somebody who will be a good speaker. And our job then will be to beat the Democrats and make sure we have a majority.
Why do you think he's stepping down?
If he does step down, I think it'll be personal. I think it'll be he's exhausted. It's a great challenge trying to lead the House Republicans. It's a great challenge trying to work with President Trump. And it's not what he wanted to do. I mean, he was drafted to be Speaker.
Right.
He loves policy. He loves working on big ideas. Trying to manage 200 and some people, take care of all of those different egos, deal with the White House staff, negotiate with the Senate. You know, it ain't, having done it for a living, it ain't nearly as much fun as you guys think it is.
Well, one of the names you mentioned, Steve Scalise, is going to be with us in about 8 minutes, so we're going to ask him about that, Newt. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about the lead story. It does sound as if an attack on Syria after their chemical attacks over the weekend. The attack is imminent. The president tweeted out a little bit ago, missiles will be coming. Meanwhile, Russia essentially is saying that if the United States strikes, that would be a war crime. Where do you sit on this?
Well, I think, first of all, the war crime was killing children with chemical weapons, which the Russians have either tolerated or abetted. Second, I hope that the United States is going to move sufficient forces into the region that the Russians won't do anything foolish. The fact is, if we mass our power, they can't possibly compete with us in the region, and we need to communicate very clearly to Putin that if the president has made the decision, if his British and French allies have made a decision to go along with him, that we are not going to tolerate any Russian interference, and that we have far more power in that area than they do, and that if necessary, we'll use it. I don't think we should allow Putin to have any illusion about trying to bluff us.
It's a key moment because they've had a great time flexing their muscle and trying to embarrass us over the last maybe 6 years, from Georgia to Ukraine. Basically, what are you going to do about it? They go into Syria. What are we going to do about it? You better not bomb. Sure. This will be the first time we react with strength.
Well, look, I mean, one of the reasons I did this course online about defending America is I think we Americans have got to get back to a habit that we're prepared to defend our civilization and defend our country. And that means if you come up against some dictator trained by the KGB and he thinks he can bluff you, you want to make sure we have enough power in place that he has no hope. We don't want him to be confused.
Yes.
And we don't want him to think he could get away with it.
Yeah, Newt, you just mentioned this online course you've done. Where can people look that up?
Well, then go to defendingamericacourse.com. I did it deliberately to set out a standard for explaining and understanding why America is a unique civilization. I think we're in a genuine crisis where so many of our schools refuse to teach American history, refuse to explain why we're an extraordinary country. And defendingamericacourse.com lets people get the kind of material they need both to win arguments and to educate their kids and to be prepared to defend America culturally and intellectually.
Okay. You talked about power. The White House is believing that the president has the power to fire special counsel Robert Mueller. Do you think he should?
I think the president clearly has the constitutional power to fire him. I think it would be an enormous mistake. I think he's far better off to let Mueller continue to be frustrated. The truth is, Mueller's produced nothing about President Trump and Russia. If you just look at what his original assignment was, it is a bust. It's an absurdity. And instead, they've gone off trying to find ways to create noise. But in terms of what he was originally asked to look into, Robert Mueller's come up with a big, fat zero. And we ought to be honest about that. The president ought to relax, focus on being president, Don't worry about Mueller. He's going to go away. And in the end, this is going to turn out to be a great deal of noise about nothing.
But when you go into an attorney's office, almost everybody in the legal profession say this is extraordinary. And when you take his papers, you take the phone out of his hand. But if you're going to that attorney, and that attorney's protecting the president, and that attorney calls Don Lemon last night to talk about his innermost thoughts, you can't blame the president for being a little unnerved if he is.
Look, but the president ought to relax. He doesn't need to worry about being unnerved. He's the president. The fact is that Rob Rosenstein has not done his job. He has not supervised Mueller. This whole thing is an absurdity. We've now had one person, Paul Manafort and his wife, in their pajamas at 3 o'clock in the morning
to intimidate,
having the FBI break down the door. We've had this real last week. Cohen, the lawyer, have the door taken off the hinges at 6 in the morning. Show me one occasion where out of all the different crimes committed by the Clintons and their staff, they ever had that kind of treatment. The fact is, this is a left-wing bureaucracy of justice. It is anti-Trump. It is anti-Republican. People who think that the justice is blind, which it's supposed to be. No, the left eye is open, and what they have done ought to lead to a real debate, not just about Mueller, but about the whole Justice Department. And remember, it was Rosenstein who approved, apparently, going in at 6 o'clock in the morning. Right. There's no reason to have done it. But I'd say the same thing about Manafort. How would anybody watching this show feel if you woke up at 3 in the morning and you and your spouse were still in bed in your pajamas and there were armed people in your room and they were the United States government and they had no reason to do it?
Especially when they're cooperating. They could have just asked him.
All right. They're trying to intimidate him to speak to Mueller or answer his questions. Does this change anything, Newt? What would you recommend the president do?
I think the president should be calm and go to the country. The president should demand that the Justice Department turn over the documents Congress asked for 4 months ago. The president should demand that they release the IG report on the deputy who was fired, which they were supposed to do in February. The president should demand that they release the report on Comey. I think when Comey goes on these TV shows, we ought to have a list of questions for him. The objective reality is Comey's off grandstanding and making money, but the truth is that he didn't do his job in the Bush administration. He colluded with Schumer to embarrass President Bush. The truth is he appointed a special counsel in the Bush administration who ran wild. And the truth is he failed to prosecute the people in the Clinton campaign. And I think we ought to take this as a chance to educate the country about Comey. And again, to go back to my course on defending America, that's the whole point. We're supposed to have the rule of law. It ain't the rule of law when they kick in your door at 3 o'clock in the morning and you're faced with armed men and you have had no reason to be told you're going to have that kind of treatment. That's Stalin. That's the Gestapo in Germany. That shouldn't be the American FBI.
If you'd like to see what Newt's talking about, go to defendingamericacourse.com. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for joining us live.
Thank you.
Good to be with you.
You bet.
All right, straight ahead. You're not going to believe this, as if we don't have enough news. This is breaking. One report in Axios from Jonathan Swan says House Speaker Paul Ryan reportedly has decided not to run for re-election. Will Majority Whip Steve Scalise run to replace him, or will it be Kevin McCarthy? We'll ask Steve Scalise.
Plus, grab your hedge trimmer. It's spring cleaning time. Skip Fidel has the gear to make your life a breeze. I don't know that that's such a good idea, giving her that.
Now, House Speaker Paul Ryan may be ready to leave Congress. Axios reporting he will not be seeking re-election, and Politico now says they have 2 sources saying that Ryan will address Congress and say he's not running for another term.
Okay, that report in Axios also noting his likely replacement just might be our next guest, who joins us live from our nation's capital. Ladies and gentlemen, the House Majority Whip, Steve Scalise. Congressman, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with y'all.
Okay, so we don't know that this story is true, that the speaker is going to get out of the speakering business. But if that is true, is that a job you would be interested in?
Look, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation, but I've been real clear for a long time. I don't want to get into speculation. I want to stay focused on our job. And we've got a lot of work to do working with President Trump to get good things done for the economy. And we got to make sure we keep the majority. I know a lot of people are saying, what are they going to run for next year? But it really becomes irrelevant if Nancy Pelosi is Speaker of the House. And clearly, that's what she's intending on doing. And they're raising a lot of money on their side. We need to make sure we hold the House, and we need to make sure we keep working with President Trump to get this economy back on track. And good things are already happening, but there's more we want to do this year.
Right? Have you heard that he is stepping down? If Axios knows and Politico knows, certainly you would know.
Well, you know, there's speculation, and I've spoken with Paul, and ultimately the speaker is going to be giving some comments later today, and I think that's his prerogative. And he's a good friend, and I think,
right.
You know,
so he is speaking later. He is addressing.
I think it's important that he's going to be talking later today, and you know, in the end, we got to focus on keeping this majority because we're doing the things that we were elected to do to get our economy back on track, working with President Trump. And again, I've enjoyed working with President Trump, and we've gotten a lot done, but there's more we need to get done.
But Congressman, would you, as a majority whip, so you're saying he is going to speak today. You would think that he's going to speak today because he's got a major announcement to say. He's not going to leave early, but he's not going to be Speaker if you guys keep the majority. Do you worry about the message and for fundraising, because he's such a fundraising fundraising force. Do you worry about the message with a retirement like this to everybody about your optimism about keeping the majority in the House?
Well, Paul's done an incredible job in breaking records as Speaker, and even with a young family. You know, he's maintained his family time on weekends, which is important to me. I focus on the same things on weekends too. But you know, he's done that work, and I don't see anything changing. Look, the people around the country that support Republicans for the House and Senate and ultimately for the White House, they know what's at stake. They know what Nancy Pelosi would do as Speaker. And look, you could go back to 2008 when Barack Obama got elected and Nancy Pelosi was Speaker then. Go look at what they did. We're trying to unravel that mess still today, from Obamacare to Dodd-Frank to so many other things that wrecked our economy. And we're actually getting that back on track, but there's more work to do.
Okay, some of the work you're going to do today, you're going to be one of your committees is going to seat Mark Zuckerberg in front of you from Facebook. He did a lot of apologizing yesterday, saying, yep, we blew it. We're going to do better in the future. What's the one thing you want to know?
Well, where was the concern in 2012 when similar things were happening? You know, what are they going to do to protect privacy of the Facebook users? I think that's something that a lot of people, when they sign up for Facebook, they understand it's a free service, but they also are not quite aware just how their information is being shared with others. And then the other is there a bias in terms of the news that they deliver to people? Is there a bias against conservatives? And, you know, some of that started coming up yesterday, but there's still a lot of questions that I have and others have. And, you know, I'm glad that Mr. Zuckerberg's going to be here. I'm glad that he acknowledged the mistakes, but still a lot a lot of unanswered questions.
All right, well, you're going to have 5 minutes. Get ready for that. Steve Scalise joining us from Statuary Hall. 4 minutes. Tick, tick. Thank you, sir.
We might be talking to the next speaker.
Thanks. Great being with you.
All right.
We're going to step aside, go outside, right back in 2 minutes.